All right, so Helene, I mean, we're all glued to the news after a hurricane, but this one feels different. This time it hit close to home for a lot of us, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. This wasn't just another storm passing through.
Exactly. And we're going to try and get into all of that today, get into the nitty-gritty of it all. We'll be taking a close look at this CBS News article. Have you had a chance to read it?
Yes, I have. Very interesting.
What stood out to you?
Well, Helene, we categorize hurricanes on a scale of 1 to 5, right?
Right.
Well, Helene slammed into that Gulf Coast as a Category 4.
Category 4, wow.
That means we're talking about, winds strong enough to rip roofs off houses, devastating entire communities, potentially.
And this wasn't the only punch the Gulf Coast has taken this year, was it?
Sadly, no. Helene was the 4th major hurricane to hit the Gulf Coast just this year.
Wow.
And that's only happened a handful of times in recorded history. It's wild. The article actually mentions that this has only happened 5 times before. And it's not just contained to one area either. The reach of this storm is massive. We're talking confirmed deaths across multiple states: Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, North Carolina, even Virginia.
Wow. This thing really cut a path across the entire region. Hard to wrap my head around numbers that big sometimes, But the article also mentions millions are without power right now.
Millions. That's when the sheer scale of this disaster really hits you, right? It's not just about the immediate damage. It's about the ripple effects. Communities, families, everyday life completely disrupted. This is going to be a long road to recovery for a lot of people.
It's easy to get lost in the numbers, for sure.
It is. But it's in those individual stories, those personal accounts, where you really see Helene's impact.
Yeah, you need those human moments to really grasp it. And the article does a pretty good job at that, highlighting some of them.
Like the situation at that hospital in Tennessee. I remember they were talking about that.
Yeah.
Having to evacuate patients from the roof because of the flood.
Oh, right.
I mean, can you imagine people stranded on a rooftop waiting for help? It really drives home how unprepared some areas were for that much water.
I know. It's scary. Makes you wonder how you would react in that situation.
Absolutely. And then you have stories like, what was her name? Linda Wicker, the restaurant owner.
And Steinhatchee.
Steinhatchee, right. 20 years she put into that business. Gone.
Just like that.
Imagine that. 20 years.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It really is. And, even amidst her own loss, the article mentioned she was worried about her neighbors, those who lost everything.
Right. It's incredible. That's the thing about disasters like this, isn't it? It brings out the best in people. Even when facing this unimaginable loss, there's this instinct to come together to support each other.
It's that spirit of resilience, it really gives you hope. And speaking of hope, the article also mentioned Marie Terry from Tampa, the tree that fell on her house.
Yeah. That could have been awful. Really awful.
Thankfully, she wasn't home.
Right. Imagine if she had been.
It's scary to think about.
It is. Really makes you think, how quickly life can change.
It does.
Yeah.
Makes you appreciate everything.
It does. But it also makes you think about the bigger picture. We've seen this kind of devastation before with Adelia, with Debbie.
And it seems like it's the same regions that are hit the hardest year after year. Is it just bad luck, or is there something else going on here?
Well, the article points to something that's been on everyone's minds lately. The Gulf of Mexico, it's experiencing some of the highest water temperatures on record.
Right.
And warmer water, it acts like fuel for these hurricanes.
So warmer water, stronger storms. It makes sense, but how does that work exactly?
So hurricanes, they draw their energy from heat, right?
Right.
So warm ocean water leads to faster wind speeds as the hurricane pulls in more and more evaporated moisture. Basically, it supercharges the storm. They even called it jet fuel in the article.
Jet fuel. Wow. So it's not just that we're seeing more hurricanes, it's that the ones we're seeing are stronger than ever.
Exactly.
Because of climate change.
It's a major factor. And that's why paying attention to Helene is so important, right? It's not just about one devastating storm, it's a wake-up call. A reminder of the risks we face as our world changes and the urgent need to do something about it.
Makes you think, all this, it's not enough to just react to these hurricanes after they hit.
No, not anymore.
We need to be thinking ahead. Preparedness, mitigation, all that.
Absolutely. The article, actually, they highlight how crucial preparation is before a storm even makes landfall. Like, remember they mentioned all those flight cancellations?
Oh, right. It was something like 1,300 flights, wasn't it?
Almost 1,300 flights canceled before Helene even hit. That's huge.
It is huge. It really shows you how these storms, they have these ripple effects. on everything.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder, how can we, like as a society even, how can we better prepare for these hurricane seasons? It's one thing to tell people to stock up on supplies.
Right.
But are we ready for this? These superpowered storms, what needs to change?
That's the big question, isn't it? What systems do we need? What can we do differently to handle all of this? It's a lot to think about.
It is. It is. Well, that's about all the time we have for today, but this has been, well, it's been eye-opening to say the least. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Hurricane Helene and its aftermath. We hope you learned something new today, something to take with you. And until next time, stay curious.